The Old School is brought to you by Ahart Solutions, which provides school surveys and applied research. More information at ahartsolutions.com.
And good morning. Welcome to the Old School Podcast, a podcast about the American education system. Although we have been known to dabble into other things, as we will today. And with me in that endeavor is my very good friend, Dr. Stephen Bourgeois. Good morning, sir.
Herr Miller, it's good to see you bright and early today. I wasn't sure we were going to be meeting because you've been traveling as you do, and we're using this old antiquated platform, even though we've been using the other one, and we both independently of each other forgot about the other one. I don't know how that happened.
I don't know what happened, but I am back.
Yeah,
Got in last night, but
yeah,
we talked on a couple of occasions about things that I could do in my retirement, and we may have stumbled upon something quite accidentally.
yeah. This is you told me in a few seconds ago, actually, and initially I thought, okay, and then I thought, wait a minute.
This could work.
This could really work. Because you have, as a retired person who wants to earn some money, and you have you know the concept of a filter where it filters out a lot of things. You filter out more than anybody I've ever met. You'll work, but I won't do this. No, no, I won't do that. I won't do that. So there's a big filter, So it sounds like, yeah, I'm ready to work.
I'm ready to work.
No, you're not like sitting at the gas station waiting to jump in the back of a truck. You won't do that. So there are,
No,
but that list expands and expands and expands. You're
but
not
the
in a restaurant. You won't be able to, you'd be a great bartender, the all-time best bartender. You won't do that. You don't want to get up too early. You don't want to travel too far or whatever. But yeah, it's a list. It's a real big filter here, Miller.
it's the beauty of being retired is that you don't have to, whore yourself out for any job that comes along. You can be a bit more selective.
Yeah, so 1,000
And
years later, so let's throw my name in the hat for this one. You know,
no, but this one's gonna be cool.
okay,
So
okay,
we as you know, I just told you, the idea of being an extra in TV and film production.
an extra. So
Yes. Now,
you told me before you were gonna be a lead actor in or your name would be in the credits.
no, I didn't say that, but I'm saying I could be a great actor. I think I have what it takes
You jumped right
to.
to that. I didn't hear the part about being an extra. I thought they were actually casting you.
No, 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 no. The idea is that because there's some local production, not local production, but production locally of TV and film in the area.
And they're doing one there.
And yeah, and they're looking for people, with faces with character, perhaps.
You have
And
a lot of that.
my face has character. It lacks a lot of other things,
It's
much
a
like
face.
looks, for instance. But
Yeah, it's a face for radio, as we've said.
that's why
So
we're
so
doing a podcast.
uh, so of all the actors in the world, uh, who's the lead, Ross, in this film? Can you say
Samuel L. Jackson is
that? He's like in every film, and he picked one actor who's in every production, television, film, commercial, doesn't matter.
I'm gonna be that guy that people will say 20 years later, that guy, he was not the lead actor. He
Right.
wasn't really the secondary actor, but he was always kind of hovering around the background. That's gonna be me.
And that's what they're trying to avoid when they do crowd scenes, right? Somewhere they're going to kick you out and say, "Okay, set the screen, sir. Would you move a little bit out of the frame?"
Could you take a couple steps back? It's just good. Just keep going. Just keep going. Is this far enough? Do you have a car, sir?
My
I
gosh.
remember I remember hearing a story one time about Harrison Ford during one of his early acting gigs. He was working as a bellboy in an elevator or something like that, some fancy schmancy hotel. And he afterwards he was trying to figure out what he needed to do to kind of get himself further along. He goes, "Well, I think the director said something like you know, you really don't come across like a star, you know,
Yeah.
a Hollywood star." And he goes, "I thought," and Harrison Ford says, "I thought I was supposed to come across like a bellboy." And so and back in those days, I think he's also he was acting, but he was also a carpenter, so he had a gig anyway, but so he could afford to be a little lippy, but at the same time, I mean, he had the right idea. You know, Harrison Ford does not hit you over the head if you ever saw him independently of his reputation and his notoriety. You know, he doesn't strike you as somebody who would be a star, but sure enough, he became a star. You know, so I'm saying that there's hope for me.
Okay. I agree. I think you could be good. You could play a teacher, you know. Uh, this is
Listen, I'm not going to be typecast, okay?
no, but all those jobs that you refuse to do, you could now get to do them in film. You know, you could be
Yes.
a waiter. I think you. No, I'm saying I don't think you'd like the job of being a waiter. Getting there, you you know, get in arguments with customers who are using wrong pronouns or language or ending their sentence in a preposition. You'd throw them out. Um, but I think that you could play a bartender and be a really, really good role for
Yeah,
you.
I don't wanna be a bartender, but I could play a
Yeah,
great bartender.
yeah,
I would have kinda like this detached, kind of bemused look on my face.
yeah.
I would have like an almost Talmudic, you know, shrug and gesture and kind of a Jewish philosophy, you know, kind of vibe to me.
Talmudic. I love it. Yeah, you could become, you could do Jewish, you could do East Coast, anything. You know how to make fun of other accents on the East Coast. You can actually do, a few of them as well naturally. Um, boy, this is wild how it opens up everything, and now the filter doesn't matter because you're just playing them for a few days.
And I can sell out, as the kids say, and just go all in.
I I'm telling you, I know a guy, who's been who would probably give you some counsel on how to get started, but he's living now in New York, and essentially he's supporting himself as an actor. That's where
May
you go.
maybe we can FaceTime him later.
Yeah, no, I think that's what we do. Or, oh, this is it.
Here we go.
We have a new guest on our podcast. Not today. That would be too crazy.
You wanna bring him in as a guest?
Yeah, because I'm about to go to New York for the very first time later in April for my son is performing in April. Uh,
It is shocking you've never been to New York.
yeah, so I'm going to be going to see him. I haven't seen him in years, but in
Mhm.
preparation for that, we can talk acting, find out what an independent actor does. You know, who's in what's it called, SAG, Screen Actors Group.
Yeah, Screen Actors Guild, you gotta get that SAG
Yeah,
card in order to be
yeah,
able to say lines in a movie.
yeah, and he's been in films. I mean, he'll tell on the podcast, but who's the actor that we both like? He did a couple of episodes with him. It's
Actor that we both like.
us.
Just it's one of the
No,
most o obtuse, unclear lead-ins, to a question. I have no idea what you're talking about.
no, what's that show?
Clint Eastwood? We both like
No,
Clint
he
Eastwood.
was in a lot of '80s movies and was kind of a mean, an unpleasant character. Very smart, a little bit diabolical. Uh,
You got a movie?
yeah, I can't remember any of the titles. Uh,
Ladies and gentlemen, you're joining us for live coverage of Dr. Bourgeois' senior moment.
no, he was in a series with James Spader, the great James Spader.
But James Spader is usually the swarmy, evil one in
Yeah,
most of
that's what
those
I'm
films,
saying.
the jerks.
Yeah. Okay, Swarmy Evil. I should have said it that way.
Are
But
you
what's
saying James Spader is who you're trying to think about?
oh, my friend was in Blacklist.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was. He was in a couple episodes of Uh,
Okay, so James Spader is the one you're trying to come up with.
yeah.
Okay, all right, great.
And so the guest that we're hopefully going to have has been in scenes and really pretty. I think he was actually killed by James Spader in the episode. Uh,
That's what that could be the lead-in question. What is it like to be killed by
yeah,
James Spader?
yeah, and he'll tell the story better than I can. But
Oh,
yeah,
certainly he'll come up with the names quicker than you did. So
let's hope so. It had a little metal block. I guess we're going to get more and more of that. But I love James Spader, and in fact, he played one of my
who doesn't?
favorite characters of all, maybe my favorite character of all television programs. And
Is Reddington? Is that the name of the character in that show?
yeah, yeah, but that's not the one that I love. He had a role in The Office, one of my favorite comedies ever. And did you watch The Office, or were you boycotting that? Filtered it out. Just because it was popular, you won't watch one of the great comedies. But he played a character called uh, my goodness, called Robert California.
Robert California?
I can't believe we've never talked about this. Uh,
Well, yeah. So
okay,
I do have a thing where the more popular something gets, the more people say you have to watch this. On principle, I won't.
but you're okay. So we have a topic today,
Yes.
and Robert California made the I think the greatest quote in any television show that I've seen. So good that for years it was my screensaver. So I'm going to read this quote, and this will be our
Here we go.
transition. Okay, may I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So Robert California was talking to right at the camera, and he talked about fear because they were doing this Halloween type episode, and they were all getting he was freaking out everybody. He was their short-term CEO of the company, and what Robert California said he said fear. I mentioned that fear plays an interesting role in our lives. How dare we let it motivate us? How dare we let it into our decision making, into our livelihood, into our relationships? It's funny, isn't it? We take a day every year to dress up in costume and celebrate fear. That great? That's Robert California, and that's the actor James Spader, who is with our next guest. And it ties
Okay.
into the topic that you sent me from some strange state north of us.
I was in Missouri. It's not well, I guess it may be a strange state, but
So I'm going to read that quote again, not right now. but,
yeah, I
but
was about to say, I think everyone got it the first time.
if you hear the way he says it, it's
Yeah.
different. It's
Okay. Well,
smarmy, whatever you would call. Is that the word? So, what made you come up with this? Was it something bad that happened in Missouri?
no, it was actually I heard something in passing about fear, and I thought it would make for an interesting topic. So what we're going to do is we're going to begin with a question. And there was a guy by the name of Michel Friedman. He is a journalist, former German CDU politician, and he used to have a show called "In a Word," Auf ein Wort, and what he would do is he would take a word and they would have some sort of thinker or philosopher or some other kind of smart person on, and they would go through and they would pick apart a particular word. But the first question he often always asked was, "What is the opposite of fear?" Or what is the opposite of whatever the word is? And so I want to start with this notion in an attempt to better understand what the word is. It perhaps might be fun to first pick out what it's not. So what would you say is the opposite of fear?
Well, it's a noun. So courage sounds pretty good.
Mhm.
That's it.
Why courage?
Well, because I guess it sort of embeds fear in the definition. You may still be afraid, but you're willing to walk through it. for whatever your outcome you want to achieve.
Or could you say that courage is more the opposite of cowardice?
It could be.
Yeah,
So,
because
like
fear
Socrates,
doesn't always suggest an inability to do something, simply the concern about it, or the concern to do it, or the concern of consequences.
so it can be a well, we can move on. Fear, you could be careless,
Yeah,
just running into danger, and that's maybe
right.
the opposite of fear, like nonchalant, whatever. I'm not gonna be thinking about anything as Mr. Miller is once again frozen in time in the scream and hopefully comes back.
Yeah.
But I was suggesting, um, yeah, lack of fear, but lack of caring, lack of worry, just careless.
There's something that also suggests that perhaps the opposite of fear might be knowledge, or might be confidence. Do you hold with that? Do you see that as opposites of fear, or do you see that as something different? The way I might see courage as something different.
Oh, I see where you're going, but I think that fear in its underlying, there's something that's irrational about it.
Hmm.
I mean, you have fear that's um, part of our survival instinct,
Mhm.
and so we have a fear of snakes. We have a fear of bears and some animal growling or really any predator immediately that's built into us, and we either have fight or flight instincts at that point. But then when it becomes irrational, where you see a anaconda wandering down the road, that's quite rational. But then you see a little garter snake, and you make the same mental anguish, and you go right to the top of doesn't matter. And so that's a little bit of an irrational part. So that in that sense, knowledge does play into it.
It's a lot of things. We're gonna start this episode by talking about fear in terms of phobia, but I think there is a much more broader way that we can discuss fear, and perhaps we will do it when we get into what we think of as fear.
What do you mean by the
Um,
word? Give us tell me the word in German.
Say again?
How would you say fear in German?
Angst.
Angst. Okay, so let's do our etymology there. Where does angst come from? What's the word behind angst?
Um, you could say that angst probably comes from the same word that gives us anxiety.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we could be so I think that fear is such a broad term, and you're right to define it, but maybe we're in. So there's another word, that Heidegger uses. He uses both, and so in some cases, sometimes it's Sorge, concern,
Yeah.
worry,
Concern. Yeah.
and and I think both are worthy of maybe separate conversations. That
Yeah. When I think of concern, I don't think of that as being as extreme as fear. Although I guess you could say that concern would be the beginning of fear.
well, I think it's a deeper. I mean, I think it's a more existential concern, worry about mortality, and
Right.
that's something that is, we. That's what we are being in the world and within concern, Zorga. So, so we're concerned all the time, and that's how we function.
Right.
That's how you function. That's how I function. But I think it is different than this. I think anxiety maybe is more specific.
Right.
There's this melees of worry and concern, and both of us, we share that.
Right.
We're hyper concerned, and we walk into a room, we're concerned but I'm thinking about existential concern as well.
But I think that's going to be the difference between because what we're about to do is I'm about to list for you the 10 most common phobias, fears that people have. And then the next stage would be us talking about what ranks high for us. And I think for us, it's going to be perhaps a phobia, but a phobia is something about something specific, almost tactile. Whereas I think a lot of times the fears that possess people are these undefinable things, these rather esoteric kind of ideas, things that you cannot put a finger on, you cannot put a firm grasp to. And so I think it's going to be a combination of a couple things when we get into what we are thinking about. And we're going to talk about it in a more general way towards the end of the podcast. But
Well,
as far as where we start, let's just start with what people consider or what various sites call the 10 most common phobias.
can you take a second and define for us phobia? Because you said it was specific. It's an irrational
Yeah.
fear. I mean,
It's usually any phobia can be referred to an individual situation or item that causes an irrational fear, and it can be debilitatingly so. So not just
yeah,
being fearful of something, but freezing people into inaction
correct.
because of the presence of this thing or the situation.
Okay. Let's hear the list. And I think we all have examples of phobia. I think everybody gets about five or six.
Yeah. So here are the top 10. You can chime in. I'll pause after each one in case you want to add something here to it. Um, and these are not in any particular order. This is just
Yeah.
the top 10 that they
Yeah.
listed.
Yeah. Maybe just
Um,
list them. I won't even, I'd like to maybe hear the whole list, see what's on.
okay. All right. So one, arachnophobia, the fear of spiders. The ophidiophobia, which is a fear of snakes. Uh, acrophobia, a fear of heights. Cynophobia, which is a fear of dogs. Um, agoraphobia is the fear of, in general, is about being out in the open, being in a being out amongst people. Comes from the Greek agora, meaning the marketplace, the open market area. Six would be astrophobia, a fear of thunder and lightning. Claustrophobia, which is an intense, overwhelming fear about being in an enclosed space. Mysophobia, fear of germs. Aerophobia, which is a fear of flying. And then lastly, trypophobia, which is an intense, overwhelming fear of a cluster of holes. Now, this could be like the holes in a sponge. This can be like the holes in a honeycomb. This could be a version to like skin diseases or what have you, maybe a cluster of bumps or what have you. Some research suggests that this might be an evolutionary response to a fear of dangerous animals that have different kind of markings, and these markings have kind of evolved into a more general fear of anything that has these kind of markings to it. So those are the top 10. There are plenty of others, of course. I mean, you could just, you could throw a brick out a window and you'll hit a phobia or something that someone's scared of. But those would be the top 10.
So do you have that in a link or can you put it in
Yes.
the chat so I can reference them?
Yes. So this,
You can just chat it to me and I'll put it in the.
yes. So these are the things that are thought to be the things that concern people the most. Anything of that jump out at you as things that, I think the next thing we're going to do is talk about ours, but was there anything you had to add about those particular ones?
Well, I'm, I'm okay. I see them now. Yeah. It takes a minute because these, I didn't know the fear of snakes was called, I can't even pronounce it. Ophidiophobia.
Ophidiophobia, yes.
Yeah, yeah. So those are Greek terms, right, Herr Miller?
Oh, yeah, all these come from Greek terms. Yeah,
Yeah. So
absolutely.
the Greek is throwing me. But
Sinophobia
well, then and Mr. Miller froze once again.
of Africa have nothing to do with birds. Uh,
say that again? We lost you there for a second here.
the Canary Islands have nothing to do with birds.
Right.
Canaries comes from the Greek root canis, which refers to an island of dogs. And so that's where that comes from. Xenophobia refers to dogs.
Interesting. Yeah, there's so many out there. I would suffer from, it's called pantophobia, which is intense fear of everything.
Pantophobia,
Pan panphobia, basically pan, like pan the
fear of bread.
no pan, not Panera, panphobia. If you're free, it's sometimes called pantophobia also, but it's a fear of everything. And so I would say that if you wanted to know what I suffer from, that would probably be it. Um, but not equally. So I think it's that's how people survive in the wild, having a good amount of fear. But then there are times when you need to overcome that fear. You're just going to starve in a corner, right?
How do you overcome it then? I mean, if you have this fear of I think you're partially joking, but I mean, but only partially because you are an indoor cat. I think you would be fine if you never left the house for any reason
I could go for
at
about
all.
2 years. I did. um, but no, I think that's crazy. But I have a list of all of them, so I don't have to look at the Greek. But I mean, we could go down that. There are a lot of things beyond the top 10.
Yeah, but so why don't you tell me the things that most make you
Okay.
fearful?
Okay. So
What
of
what
your
would be your
that's
top 5?
top 5, that's well, those certainly snakes. I mean, that's to the point where I would leave a state if I even see one. So I've never seen one in Texas, if you can imagine, but I've taken pains to not be outdoors in places where they may linger or reside or stalk people. But it's very much irrational. I had a job once, inside job at a pretty large factory. This is in Oregon.
Right?
You may not know this, but I did that. Um, and somehow a little garter snake got into the double doors. It was sort of in between
Mm.
there, and I thought, how am I going to get this thing out? And eventually it made its way into the main floor, and I kind of freaked out. But I had all these tools, so somehow I swept it outside and closed the doors. And then the next day, I promptly walked or called the person and quit the job, kind of as calmly as the mailman delivering the mail. I think I'm working in it anymore. And interestingly, I left that job to take a job as a movie extra. You know what you're trying. It's on the they filmed something in Oregon, and a movie called Personal Best, actually, with the great Mariel Hemingway being a track athlete. And I was on set for that. I made a lot of money. So you're right. You can just being in the crowd, you make a lot of money per day. I mean, they take your day away from you. They feed you, and you're there all day because there's a lot of sitting and waiting. Well, that's what the job is. And then they put the turn the lights. But anyway, I quit a perfectly good job, and I did another time where I was doing some shrub gardening. I was probably in high school. Same thing. It was this time I quit on that actual day. There was a garter snake on the ground where I climbed down my ladder. This was a tall shrub. Walked up there and said, "I'm leaving. I won't be working here anymore." Like the mailman delivering the mail. I drove away, and I never returned to that place. Um, I don't, but
You do know that there's nowhere on this earth you can go and not potentially encounter a snake.
well, you don't see a lot of them inside, thank goodness. There
It depends on where you are, I think, but
there was one on the tennis courts when I was teaching private lessons. It was like group lessons. So I had a group of kids, and this I mean, this is just in Oregon, And so I stopped the practice and I didn't leave them, but I said, I'm walking over here. I want one of you to remove that and tell me when it's all gone. And the little guys particularly love that kind of thing. They got him to, but I remember just saying, I'm not involved in this. I'm walking away. You guys take care of that and tell me when it's done. So it's definitely irrational. I can remember jumping once. I was walking with one of both of my sons when they're very young. This was in Oregon. We were visiting. They have a lot of garter snakes, apparently. I may not like the state as much as I think I do. Uh, but I can remember jumping back. I didn't move to protect them, but I moved to be the first to get away. And that was all instinct. I felt bad about it, but it's in
So
there.
your fear instinct outweighed your parental instinct to protect.
It's pretty deep, but I won't watch one on a television show. I mean, if they show one, I'll cover my eyes. I'll make the woo woo sound. And my wife knows to tell me to close your eyes and tell me when it's gone. I won't. If I turn to and see one on the screen of my phone, and sometimes you get these pop up ads or something. I just will put the phone away for a few days. I really don't like them, and it's no joke. So
Would
it's
you say it's your greatest fear?
yes. Easily.
Really?
Well, except by being eaten by wild bears or something. Yeah. But it doesn't matter if it's a dangerous snake or not. Um, it's irrelevant. It can be
Okay.
big, small, whatever. They pose no threat. I could walk up and I mean, what I'm supposed to do if I follow the words of Nietzsche is to take the snake and bite its head off, and that would conquer the fear. But I'm
We'll
not.
do something, that's for sure.
Yeah, but I'm not there yet. But eventually, um, there's this terrible parable that he made about some shepherd who's sitting under a tree. He's fell asleep, and the snake crawled into his mouth. And what Nietzsche said is you need to bite its head off. And at that point, he became transformed. And I think that the fear and all of that is the moment. But I'm not there yet. If I were G. Gordon Liddy, like he was afraid of what rats or something. He took it to an extreme, and that's probably what I would need to do. But I spent way too much time on this podcast, and even talking about it. If I listen to the podcast, I'll fast forward past this part.
So, what other are there any other primary fears? And it can be a phobia of about a particular
Yeah.
thing, or it could be a general sense of something.
So there's
Are
one.
there any are there any other fears that you have?
Yeah, because it's when yeah, I spend so much time on that because you lose control.
Yeah.
Your faculties kind of everything freaks out. So I think I have a fear of heights, a deep one, and also being over water. So taking bridges over water is not great. And then when you combine it with a high bridge, it's sort of this type of claustrophobia, and you're actually driving. And so
Is
the
that why you don't wanna go over the Mackinac Bridge?
well, that was the story. Uh, Aaron Miller. So I was
I'm sorry.
driving over the Mackinac Bridge, and there's a long preview to that, meaning you're driving along until you get to the where it's the water. So the bridge starts early, and
Right.
so I'm driving the family, and it's great. And then you start to see the bridge there, and you look up, and it feels like it's going straight up, like a
Oh.
roller coaster. Have you been over the Mackinac Bridge?
I've not been over the Mackinac Bridge. I've been over a couple of other ones that
Yeah.
perhaps might rival it.
It definitely you can see it, and then you're over water on both sides, a lot of water. A lot of water. Um, and so that's the first my first time doing it, I think. Um, I have to believe that I've been over it before, but in a smaller car, and that made a difference. But I was in a band sitting up high, and something about that combination. So I immediately my I froze up, like, I don't think I can steer this straight, you know? And so I had to pull over into they had a side lane over there, a shoulder, and it was a little bit hectic, to do that, and then switching, and my wife took the wheel. I don't know if she had to get out or we just crawled around, but I couldn't do it. I froze, and then she took it over, and I was mad for about 2 years about that because I really felt. I mean, you would feel the same way. I'm like, how could I not manage that? But I will say that we came back there, and I was determined, and so I I I took the wheel again the next time we went to Mackinac Island, and going over that bridge, I was ready. I was cursing the whole time, yelling at the top of my and I did it. And so I overcame that fear, but that's why it's number two and not number one. But that combined a few fears,
Yeah.
being over water on a bridge
Right.
so high.
So there's a couple other bridges that perhaps would not be your favorite. I'm thinking about the Sunshine Skyway Bridge that connects St. Petersburg with Tampa. There's the Chesapeake Bay Bridge, which also can be. I don't think either one. I mean, the Sunshine Skyway Bridge does have that sense like you're going straight up as you go up to it, but as you're on it, it doesn't feel quite as steep as it may have looked beforehand. I wonder if could you handle something like the Lake Pontchartrain Causeway? This is the bridge that's in
Oh,
South Louisiana,
yeah,
and you're like 5 feet above the water,
yeah,
but you're over the water for like 20
yeah.
miles
I did
or
that.
maybe longer.
I did it. That was fine. So the height is the exacerbating feature,
Okay.
and so my number three one. I mean, we joke about it, but being up that high on cliffs, driving in Italy,
Yeah.
that's actually right up there for me. Like, but I have a fear, and this is just developed, and it's nothing to do with you here, Miller, but being in a car with other drivers freaks me out. I just don't. I mean, I don't know how often you're in a car, but it's just a lack of control, and it's happened gradually. But I'm never that comfortable. And you're a great driver, But
Thank you.
it's just being in a car with any other driver. I'm immediately, I drove back from Indianapolis with my kids driving, and that freaked me out for a very long time. It's just the lack of control and being a passenger. I think I'm better in the back seat. They should just put me in the back and cover my eyes. Uh, but
Now, I will say to
yeah,
to cut you a little slack, I think
yeah,
most parents would be a bit fearful of being in a car while their kids
yeah,
drove, no
yeah,
matter how well their kids might drive.
yeah. And that was part of it. But just driving with anybody, it takes me a long time to get comfortable with that.
Mm,
I mean,
right.
you and I have driven together. I know what you do. I know how you drive. You drive differently than I do. You're
Yeah.
definitely, we have a different approach, but I also have a nice long sample size that you're able to handle every circumstance.
Right.
But I don't like being a passenger.
Okay.
That's one of my so that I think it's pretty far up there. I don't know. Beyond those three, it would be. Oh, I have more. I'm going to take the whole.
Okay.
So, I don't like crowds. I mean, big crowds, particularly walking around. It's okay sitting in a stadium, but I don't like walking out or in. That gets to me.
So
But
I think that's the agoraphobia.
yeah, being surrounded. I never liked state fairs, if because and they have these rides that I never liked. I never liked Ferris wheels. I mean, if you put like snakes on the ground at a fair and combine everything that I'm afraid of. Um, but this is way too easy. There are too many of these fears. But yeah, being in uh, an enclosed space, I have a little bit of claustrophobia. There's one I just thought of that I forgot about, and now I need to think about it. But yeah, the idea of being around big groups of
Mm,
people is not great also.
mhm. So, would you say that most of your fears are that targeted, or do you did talk about the fear of everything, but I mean, do you think that most of your fears have a specific object at its center, or do you have other fears that would be harder to nail down?
Dentists. I'm less afraid of, well, dental hygienists. They can, it just depends on how they approach it, but I don't like a lot of that. And so I've been on. I'm now in the good graces of a dentist, but I was on the watch list and flight risk category for many years. I outlasted waited till one of my well, your dentist retired. But we'll do a whole episode on that. But that so I guess the what being without control seems to be the common theme in a lot of these, but there are more. I can go on and I'll probably think of more and just interrupt you. But that was yeah that was pretty easy coming up with those. But I have more.
Well, I do have specific things, but I also have perhaps more kind of more philosophical fears. But you know, the one that probably ranks highest among them all is heights.
Huh?
Now, what's strange is that I've never been comfortable with heights, but I've always been willing to endure them if it meant I got a good view of something, if it meant that I had an incredible experience or what have you.
Yeah,
But in the I'd say last 6 years, it's become almost pathological,
the heights.
where it's not just a fear, it's almost have like an anxiety attack.
Mm.
Whereas before I could go up, I could be uncomfortable and I could be scared, and yet I could still operate, I could still function, I could still do that. And then about 6 years ago, I had a moment where I was paralyzed and as soon as I got up there, I was looking for the exit. And so it's one of those things where it doesn't make any sense.
Mhm.
I know the structure is not going to collapse. I know there's no danger of me falling. Um, but for whatever reason, this fear has gotten so bad that it's now become a triggering for an anxiety attack, which seems to me to be a kind of another next level of fear, perhaps the kind that you experienced on Mackinac Bridge. That would probably be the biggest one. And yet I still will try to put myself in that situation with the thought that, and we'll talk a little bit more about this later, with the thought that if you do it enough, you get desensitized to it. I've not hit that point yet, but I'm still hopeful that I will.
But you went through an incredible amount of training, and a
Mm.
lot of your training in the military dealt with these types of things to the point where you were more afraid of, the consequences than, than you just did these things, right? You jumped out of planes, you did all this stuff.
Well, no, I didn't jump out of a plane, but I mean, but I would have to do rappelling, where you
So,
rappel off a cliff or off a bridge.
okay. Well,
Or you would, we did something called spy rigging or sky rigging. I forget what it's called, but basically, there's a rope attached underneath a helicopter, and then
yeah.
it
So that's
trails back.
you
Yeah,
were
and then you
flying on
attach yourself. Yeah, you attach yourself to the rope, and then the helicopter takes off, and then up you go on the rope.
yeah.
Uh,
Well, you
and
could have
so,
liked that. I mean, even a younger hair Miller, was it tough to make the decision to go, or you just went
well,
because
first of
you
all,
had to?
to suggest I made a decision would suggest I had a choice,
They
but
actually pushed you?
well, no, it didn't push me, but the repelling business was more frightening for me, but, once I got up and once I realized I wasn't gonna fall off the rope, you can kind of enjoy the view, and it always makes me wonder if I could just get past jumping out of a plane, I think I would enjoy the trip down because, you're if you have a parachute or what have you,
Hope so.
it'd be a nice relaxing kind of a thing, but I've never been able to even conceive of what it would take. Well, was it John Wayne said, it's irrational to jump out of a perfectly good aircraft,
Yeah, yeah. That's
and
John
so,
Wayne?
but
I thought
if
you
it's
made that
going
up.
down, I guess if it's going down, I have a parachute. I guess I'll somehow muster the ability to do it, but it's just, that's a different category altogether. But yeah, when you're younger, you have less of a sense of your own mortality, and so off you go.
Well, and you had a lot of peer pressure to do whatever everybody else did there, or you get um, whatever they do to people who don't jump out of planes and repel, mock you, right? In a very unpleasant way.
Well, I tell you, when I did the rappelling, I'm sure I've told you the story. We were on a rope bridge between two cliffs. We were about 300, 400 feet in the air, and we had to walk out to the center. In the middle of this rope bridge is a platform, and this was in South Korea. So there's this nice Korean gentleman in the middle of the bridge with the platform. He's basically overseeing, make sure all of our harnesses are straight. And then when I got up to the platform and I was getting in, there's two ways you can rappel. You can do a ranger style rappelling, which is where you go backwards. And that's what you tend to see a lot in the movies,
Yeah,
people
yeah.
coming down a cliff. Yeah. And then the second is called Australian, which is you go face first. And the problem with this particular jump that I had to do is I had to do Australian, if at least if you're not looking down, you can fool yourself into thinking that the ground is right below you. And the worst part about the Australian jump is that you jump with the rope in the brake position, but there's about 7 to 10 feet of slack that has to come undone before you come to a stop. So not only are you jumping, but you're jumping with no immediate sense that you're about to stop.
The free
Like I
fall.
said, it takes, yeah, for 7 to 10 feet, it's a free fall. Now you may hear that and say to yourself, good Lord, it's just 7 to 10 feet. But if you're already fearful, it seems like an eternity. And so I get to the platform, and the Korean gentleman said in very broken English, he said, "I count to three. At three, you don't jump, I push." And I looked at him and I said, "You may not understand what I'm saying, but if you push me, you and I are going to have a different problem." And he didn't understand probably what I said, but he got the feeling of what I said. And so he said, he kinda counted to 3, and I hesitated for a second. He goes, "I push." Son of a, and then I just threw myself off the platform, because if he had pushed me, I would have gone right back up. I would have gone down, and then I would have ran right back onto the platform. But when you're right. When you're in that kind of situation, there's a certain amount of peer pressure. You don't want to be the one that wimps out or chickens out. And so you find a way to get through it. But as an adult, or as an older adult, you're not confronted with that. The only thing I can think of is when I went to the top of the cathedral in Cologne,
Yeah.
and at the very, very top, most of your climb up is within this kind of concrete conclave. You're kind of like in this enclosed area.
And there's this open staircase on the top.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean,
at the
really open.
top, there's this open staircase, and it was only because my students were there
Yeah.
that I found the found the ability to push through it.
I never did that up open staircase. I was there about 10 times and I never would go onto that staircase.
Yeah. Well, the kids are like, "Are you coming, Mr. Miller?" "Yes, I'm coming." And so,
But it's
the
gotten,
fear of heights,
yeah.
the fear say again?
But you're saying it's gotten worse.
It's
So
gotten worse, and
you're
so
knowledgeable about so it's irrational by definition.
it is irrational.
But
My,
you
second fear that I have is that, um, dear listeners, Mr. Miller, was not always, the quasi middle class that I am today. We had various situations that we lived in when I was a kid, and one of them was when we lived in this house that was infested with roaches.
Oh, I remember the roach thing. Yes.
Yeah, the roaches, and it's not right. It must be a fear, because it's one of those things that as soon as I see one,
You jump.
then I will hunt it down and until it's dead.
Uh,
And if anything ever convinced me to get a dog, it would be to get a dog that eats roaches. Now, as it happens, luckily, I mean, there are places in the world where even if you're the cleanest person in the world, you still have roaches. And so I think sometimes there's a misnomer that people think roaches only infest houses or places that are just dirty or disgusting. But that's not necessarily the case. And so the roach thing has always been, I don't know what the hell that would be called, fear of roaches.
it's pretty
But
specific, though. and I saw it. I mean, we shared an office, and I
Right.
recall seeing, and I was the one, which is the last thing I would expect between the two of us, but I took care of the brooch because, and anything else, say it were a spider or something else, you would have done the deed, So that's very
Yeah.
specific for you, and that's
Yeah, I just looked it up. Catsaridophobia
oh,
is a fear of cockroaches. Um, and so, but
they're
yeah, so it just
they're
say again.
harmless. They're completely harmless.
They're harmless. It's not that they're going to bite, but they're filthy creatures. And I yet to figure out an ecological purpose for them. And so, like, if they all died, I don't think we'd be any worse off for it. But there you go. And so, um, a third thing that, as far as like a fear goes, I would think a third thing would be something along the lines of, and this is where you get into more metaphysical kind of stuff, but it's a fear of being poor. I've been poor once. I always used to laugh at people that would say, we didn't know we were poor. We were rich in love. That's bullshit. I knew I was poor. I knew I was poor. All the kids in the neighborhood knew I was poor. The kids I went to school with knew I was poor. And so the notion of being poor, and it's really kind of strange because I also have almost, not almost, a a large disregard for money. I don't care about money. I just want enough so that it keeps a roof over my head and I can do some fun things now and again, but I don't seek money. I never have. That's why I became a teacher, boys and girls. But the idea of money never interested me, but poverty most certainly does. And I think once you are in that situation, I think once you have to deal with that, anybody who's ever dealt with it, I think understands that. It's something that you live in fear of happening again. It's not that you live in fear that you won't be able to handle it again. It's that you just don't want to have to handle it. I could be without money. I could be with money, but the notion of being poor has caused a lot of fear over my life.
I could, well, I resist saying my standard line about getting into teaching because of the money and being misinformed, but I said it anyway. But if you're supporting a family as a teacher, just one
Right.
income, you're there was never a year where I didn't moonlight heavily, and I think that you know that's but still the idea of being poor and the idea of not being employed is it kind of makes it really, really frightening, not having a safety net. Um,
And so that
yeah.
idea, yeah, that idea of it is what keeps me up at night sometimes. And not that I think that we're headed for the poorhouse, not that I think conditions are ripe for us to do so. It's just something that's always in the back of my mind that it's a place that I never want to go to again.
Yeah.
And so therefore you do whatever you have to do to ensure that it doesn't.
Okay. And that was number.
That was number three. I would say those were probably the big three.
Oh, you
You
have.
know,
Come on.
I have more use. Something you care to share?
Well, I can list 25 here, and you can just say yes or no. All right. Because I think you're missing something, unless you have more that you're going to say.
No, those are the three that
Okay.
reigned large in my
This is
imaginations.
terrible. This is just like foods. You say you like all these foods, and I'll bring up one thing. Well, I'd eat it, but I. So 25. You can say yes or no. Spiders.
I have no fear of spiders.
What if they have hair on them?
It doesn't matter what they have on them. I'll still kill them. But
Okay. Snakes.
I will tell you a story about spiders if you
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
mind. It's a quick story.
I love a good spider story.
So I don't have a fear of spiders, but who does is my wife.
Okay.
And so she saw a spider one day. It's early in our marriage, and it's where roles were clearly defined. I was responsible for killing spiders, just like
Mhm.
in our office. But she saw a spider and she wigged out. It was massive.
Yeah.
And then I went to go kill it, as any self-respecting
Mm.
husband, man would do. I took a shoe,
Sure, that's what
and
you
as
do.
soon as I hit it,
Yeah.
I realized it wasn't a big spider. It was a pregnant one. And as soon as I hit it, all these little tiny spiders just went in like
Oh,
different directions.
nightmare, nightmare.
My wife went catatonic. And I'm sitting there like whack-a-mole with shoes, just hitting the and the problem was it was in a rug. It's when apartments had a carpet everywhere. So I'm sitting there trying to get all these things as they're kind of digging in, and my wife just lost it. I went to go get some spray and just
Yeah.
spray the area. But yeah, that's so I don't have a fear of it, but my wife damn sure does.
Wow.
All right, so what's the next one?
Uh, okay, so you talk about snakes. Are you afraid of snakes?
No.
Really? Okay, good to know. Very good to know. You said heights, flying. Being in an airplane, you've gone up and back and forth on that one, right?
So the the more I think about it, the more uneasy I get. I wouldn't say I have a fear of it because I still routinely put myself in a position to fly. But the more I think about the whole dynamics of it, and
Right.
I do feel cooped up.
Hmm.
And so that's why on those transatlantic flights, I'll spend most of the trip walking around because I
Yeah, you
can't
do.
stand,
Do the rounds.
yeah, I can't stand being locked in on a seat. I can't stand being locked in that tin can. I don't like it when people stand too close to the emergency doors. I was like, because you always hear stories about someone who just wigs out and tries to open the emergency door. And so, so,
So you're
um,
not a relaxed flyer, but you need to have an aisle, aisle
yes.
seat for sure. Okay. Um, and you've had some unpleasant flying experiences too with turbulence and things.
Yeah, I've been on one uh one in particular looms quite large,
Yeah.
where the plane dropped several times and people are praying and crying around you, and that probably didn't help
No.
my late adult onset concern for flying. I don't want to call it a fear, but certainly a concern.
Okay. Dogs?
I don't trust them, but I don't necessarily fear them.
Fear of thunder and lightning.
No,
Fear of needles or injections.
no,
Okay. I'm not speaking because these don't frighten me either. Public speaking?
no.
I used to, not anymore. I'd give me a microphone. Fear where situations where escape is difficult.
Well, that sounds a little bit like claustrophobia, where you're in a tight spot and you don't feel like you can get out. Um,
But you look for the doors in a restaurant. I mean,
I do look for exits, and so
yeah,
so perhaps there is something there, but
yeah. Germs, germophobia. Okay, no. Small spaces. That's we've kind of talked. Are you claustrophobic?
not really. No.
Okay. I wrote my whole dissertation in a closet. I can handle that. It's quite happy. Um, okay, we talked. Some of these are repeated. Clustered patterns or holes. Is that what you were saying before?
Yeah, and
That's
that's one of the
interesting.
ones that because I used to teach psychology, and for a while we would
Yeah.
spend time on fear. And it was the first time I ever heard of someone saying that they had a fear of a whole bunch of holes.
Mhm.
And I had never heard of that before, and I must have thought at the time they were joking, but since I have realized that there are people that do have this fear of tiny holes, especially a bunch of 'em, not just like one in a rock somewhere, but just like a whole bunch of holes. Um, that seems to be a real thing, but it's never anything that's ever possessed me in fear.
Okay. Number 14 is probably too specific. Fear of getting cancer.
Well, who's looking forward to it? I mean, that's a
Yeah.
that's a dumb
Um,
I don't understand that one. Maybe there's more to it that people
well,
are concerned about other than maybe just dying, so
it's how we die. There's some mechanism in there of whatever it is. It's something inside of you, I guess, doing things that you have no control over. So fear of death. I mean, that's the getting obsessed by it is different than having a
yeah.
natural fear of it. Being alone.
No, no fear of that. Mhm.
um, Hermelo, do you have a fear of failure?
Yeah, well, I not to the point where I would call it a phobia, but going back to the earlier notion of being fearful of poverty or being poor again, I think that's usually preceded by some kind of failure of one form or another, and so
Yeah,
perhaps that gets roped in.
that makes sense. Birds
Oh,
don't bother me. How about you being in a car when you're not driving?
I don't like not being in control. I wouldn't say I'm fearful of it, but I find that I get more nervous if I'm not the one behind the wheel. And so you know that there are couples where there's one person in a couple that always does the driving. I'm the one that always does the driving.
Yeah,
I understand that accidents could happen whether I'm behind the wheel or not. I would prefer to be responsible for that and rather than not be.
makes sense. Fear of blood?
No,
Yeah, me neither. Water?
like from the tap.
I hope not. Uh,
Wait,
bubbled. I don't bubbly water.
I have talked to students that talked about a fear of open water.
Oh, okay.
I
Well,
don't have that particular fear, but
do you have a fear of darkness?
no,
Neither do I.
I just know I can't see in it. But other than that, so.
Um, okay, there are just three more left. Just some people have a fear of vomiting. Does that bother you? The concept of vomiting?
I'd rather not than do, but I don't have a fear of it, no.
Yeah. Okay, so you're talking about fear of big, like the ocean. People joke about the fear of clowns. Is that real?
Not with me.
Yeah, I think it's silly. So pretty much
But there you
we're kind of fearless folk.
go.
And some of the ones that we kinda laugh at, "We'll do this, we'll do this," but then so maybe there's some psychological tests that have shown that there are about 4 that stand out for everybody,
Yeah.
and the rest fall away, and then, but as far as how they develop, yeah, I have a theory about the snake one, but I don't wanna get into it. But I will. We used to hunt them.
Start getting into Freud and
No, we used a buddy and I used to hunt them because I mean, you could not but just to capture them, so somehow we wanted to get a bunch of them and sort of almost have this little box farm. It was pretty cool, but I never
Mhm,
picked any of them up. All I would do is lift the board up because you lift a board up, and you would find some, but, and then we did this little, demonstration, we brought them to school, and as a teacher, show and tell, I would have kicked the kid out of if somebody tried that crap, This was in the '70s, and "Yeah, we collect these," and somebody said, "Well, Steve, I noticed your friend's the only one handling the snake." I said, "No, I don't I don't do
mhm.
that part, I just moved the board."
He's the snake charmer, I'm more the intellectual of the
Yeah,
duo, but,
so, but
so
I
do you
think that
think
yeah, go ahead.
do you think that because one of the things that you'll often if you Google phobias or what have you,
Yeah,
you'll see the list of phobias, but then
yeah,
you'll also see sites that talk about how to get rid of it.
yeah,
And, I think most people probably know on some level how you get rid of phobias, but I wonder if there is something important to having fears. Is it
mhm.
should it be necessary to eliminate your fears, or is it better to figure out how to manage having them? Is there something that we have that's a benefit to us by having fear of whatever, as opposed to trying to spend all your life trying to get rid of fears?
Um, well, I think it's an incredible motivator, and so I think somewhere along there, maybe you mentioned it, but the idea of fear of failure is an incredible motivator.
Yeah.
As a athlete, my fear was to lose.
Mhm.
And that was an incredible way to. I mean, you didn't want that to happen, and you've experienced so many of those, so you know what it's like. Um, but yeah, it's a great motivator, and pushing through fears is also um, one of the ways to measure your strength.
Mm.
And so, but I think if it's in a way that affects your work or your relation, kind of what Robert California was saying. If it affects your work, your relationships, how dare we let it into our lives? I like that sentiment.
I think there are certain fears that are more damaging, more debilitating than others. I think if you have like a very strong fear like of open places and people and what have you, I think that needs to be something you need to try to address if you can.
Mhm.
I think fear of heights, I think fear of things like that, things that don't tend to have as many real world applications.
Right.
I think that maybe there's nothing wrong with having a fear. I do always have a distrust of anybody who says they don't fear anything, because one, I have the sense they're lying, and two, they're either lying to me, they're lying to themselves, or both. And so I think that there is something healthy to having fear.
Uh-huh.
It's just a question of what it is, because some fears can be more damaging to the person than others.
Well, and a lot of fears, like fear of death, we don't talk about, and so some of these are so profound and personal that, even the two of us won't talk about certain things, so that's a whole different thing, the real deep personal fears.
I remember, every time there would be a school shooting somewhere, people would ask me, "Aren't you afraid to go into work today, teaching today?" And I tell them, I said, "I honestly cannot tell you that I think about it.
Mhm.
It makes no sense to think about it." Now, I have been in situations, I'm a combat vet, and so I obviously have been in situations where death was certainly possible, but it doesn't make any sense to think about it because it's gonna come when it comes. So you worrying about it doesn't make it more likely to happen or less likely to happen. But I also understand that I have a unique experience that allows me to have this particular take on it, and maybe somebody else doesn't have that, and therefore the topic tends to loom larger in their imagination.
So there was a speech by Walter White on about a 747 crash. Walter White from Breaking Bad, the show, another one that you refuse to watch. Uh,
Yeah, it's
so, I mean, you talk about school shootings, and this was a plane that crashed and apparently, created trauma, and so they had an assembly.
okay. Okay.
Of all the people to speak, they brought in Walter White, who's teaching there, and he said, "Well, technically, this was only the 50th, the worst plane crash of all time, and it's actually quite remarkable that only so many people died." So he's looking at very, very statistically, just, so with a school shooting, yeah, the fact that you're probably safer going into that school than you are going into your bathtub is,
Sure,
so, but there's something about the school shooting that captures the imagination, because I mean, there's all these different vulnerabilities happening at once, and you're
sure.
in a room and all that. So it's a, it's, I think it's different. It's new. Um, but you don't want Walter White making your motivational speeches. That's for sure. Uh,
I don't remember anything like that except for I think my sophomore year, the when the Challenger
oh,
exploded. I mean, I remember that as being something that people talked about and that no one asked us if we were okay. It was the 80s. They didn't think about that. Um, but yeah, I mean, I do think sometimes that the desire to want to talk about things can be a bit excessive. You know, when you talk about death, we've talked about before. I've had two students who died while they were a student of mine. And to me, there's nothing to be gained in my mind as it relates to me about me talking about one of our students dying.
yeah,
And for me, I would rather work and then deal with the other stuff later. But
yeah,
but there does seem to be a desire, anytime anything out of the ordinary happens, there's this whole machination that happens within schools. We need to make sure the kids have access to counselors. We need to make sure we talk about it sensitively. And all that, yeah, that makes sense. but you also wonder if we don't often cause our own fears by obsessing about things that are natural. You want to talk about it, you should be allowed to talk about it, but when you mandate it or when you start sending down edicts from on high, I think sometimes that can create our own fears.
An uplifting message here, Miller. I'm not sure if I would prefer you or Walter White to give the motivating speech.
Y'all need us. Yeah, buckle up, Buttercup. Let's go. So
Well, here's what Walter White said at the end of this. Um, it's because people move on. They just move on, and we will too. We will move on. We'll get past this because that is what human beings do. We survive. We survive. We overcome. We survive. And then he was interrupted. The principal moved away from the microphone.
But no, it talks about what Nietzsche said, that the greatest attribute that can be said of a person is that they can endure.
Right.
And whether it means enduring tragedy like 9/11 or the Challenger explosion, or whether you can endure just the day-to-day grind of getting through life. I mean, there is something admirable about someone who can do that without faltering.
Like that. Now we're getting a more Nietzschean approach. You should build your cities on Vesuvius.
Yes. Well, I don't go that far, but
Wow. Come on, Ross.
all right. Well, there you go. There's an episode on fear. And I do have a fear that if I do this extra business work enough, that I'll start getting recognized, and that's going to be annoying. I'll have to sign autographs and things of that nature. But
That's your fear.
I'm
They'll meet
I immediately
actresses,
jump to
young
that.
and old people. Yeah, they'll want to have dinner, and they'll meet all the
Every woman wanted to be with him. Every man wanted to be him, and yeah.
yes, he'll be the most interesting man in the world.
All right, with that, we shall say adieu on the day that the great iconic Chuck Norris checked out.
Oh my goodness, that's right. That was like
It's
just
huge.
it is, and that man had no fear. We
He
can
had no fear. He didn't fear death. Death feared him. So, with that, we don't want to go into all the Chuck Norris jokes, but
that was a good
with
one.
that, we shall say adieu, Herr Dr. Bourgeois.
Auf Wiedersehen, Herr Miller.